क्या हेलो आ रही आवाज? ये तो मेरी आवाज है कि माइक की है? हेलो आवाज नहीं आ रही यार, जल्दी से डाउट बताओ। MCLR वाला पार्ट और कोई? हाँ रेपो रेट, अच्छा ओके, इनका भी वही डाउट है। और कोई डाउट? बैक सीरीज डेटा, और कोई? आवाज नहीं आ रही, देखिए जरा। हेलो नहीं आई। यू ऑल हैव रेड द न्यूज़पेपर? हाँ एडिटोरियल पेज पे यू कैन रीड दिस आर्टिकल, बट बहुत ज़्यादा रेलिवेंट तो मुझे नहीं लगा, बट यू कैन हैव अ लुक ऑन दिस आर्टिकल। बिजनेस पेज, ये पढ़ना है, ठीक है, ये पढ़ लेना आप। देन दिस नॉट रेलिवेंट, दिस नॉट रेलिवेंट, दिस नॉट रेलिवेंट, कुछ भी रेलिवेंट नहीं है। और सब बिजनेस न्यूज है, बस आप ये एक बार देख लेना, ठीक है। IIP एंड और किसका डेटा आया है? किसी ने न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ा है? तो IIP वाला डेटा आपने पढ़ा था? कुछ चेंजेस हुआ इस तो some of you have confusion regarding transmission of repo rate into lending rate, है ना? RBI reverse repo banks deposit, which is 6%, and repo 6.25. Then there is money market, then here it is bank deposit, and then lending, ठीक है। This is your money market. Money market, this interest rate, here money is being traded through debt papers. किसी को पैसा चाहिए, he issues debt paper and gets the money. Now if here this is Axis Bank, ICICI Bank, ICICI Bank is lending money and Axis Bank is giving the debt paper. Now ICICI Bank will give to Axis Bank only at a higher than this reverse repo, because reverse repo पे this ICICI Bank can always keep it with RBI. So it gives maybe suppose at 6.2%, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3%. ठीक है? If repo rate will increase, reverse repo rate will increase, and this rate will increase होगा, ये increase होगा। Call money rate, ठीक है, ये भी increase होगा। Now try to understand this for companies, for banks. This is a market where they can raise money for less than 1 year. Banks or companies can also raise money from the capital market by issuing debt instruments for more than 1 year. ठीक है? Now, if repo rate increased, reverse repo rate increased, here the rate increased, the rate at which money is available. Then what do you think about the capital market? What will happen? The rate there, it will also increase, because the rate at which money is available, here it is increasing, there it also increases. If ICICI Bank is getting more interest rate, if the interest rate increases, ICICI Bank is getting more interest rate, then they may offer the depositors also higher interest rate. right? They can also, to attract, there is competition to attract the depositors, na? So they can also offer higher to the depositors. When they can higher offer to the depositors, they increases the lending rate also, because this is the difference that they earn profit. So if this rate is increasing, this also increases. Okay, this is cost for the company, this is cost price of the product, this is selling price of the product, the difference they earn as profit. ठीक है, इसीलिए रेपो, रिवर्स रेपो, दिस रेट एंड दिस एफडी रेट, देयर कैन नॉट बी मेजर डिफरेंस. जैसे अभी रेपो 6 है, रेपो 6.25, रिवर्स 6% है, हियर इट इज ऑल्सो 6 प्लस समथिंग, हियर इट इज ऑल्सो 6.5, 6.75, 7, and this is maybe 2-3% above than this. So if this increases, this also increases. When this increases, sorry, when this increases, this also increases, this also increases, this also increases. ठीक है? When this repo rate decreases, this decreases, this decreases. So here also the rate decreases. Here also the rate decreases, and then deposit rate and lending, transmission of repo rate into lending rate. देखो, everywhere money is available to banks. Banks को पैसा वहाँ से भी available है. Here also banks can raise money. Here also banks can raise money. Money is available in the 3 sectors, 3 parts, 3 markets. There cannot be major variation. It is not possible that at one rate money, the price of money is decreasing, and at the other rate it will increase. Otherwise, if the companies may move into other markets or something, as यहाँ भी money available है, in capital markets also money is available. Can there be a major difference? नहीं. Otherwise, the companies will start moving to that market or this market. So it's a transmission mechanism. ठीक है, इससे ज़्यादा जानने की जरूरत नहीं है इसमें. क्लियर? तो आप बस ये ध्यान रखना, रेपो रेट चेंजेस, रिवर्स रेपो रेट चेंजेस, दिस चेंजेस, देन दिस चेंजेस, देन दिस चेंजेस. ये मैकेनिज्म है ट्रांसमिशन का, रेपो रेट इनटू लेंडिंग रेट. सो व्हेन आरबीआई चेंजिंग द रेपो रेट, it expects that it will be transmitted here. Sometimes it is fast, sometimes it is slow. Through MCLR it is quite fast. Now it is considering कि we will keep an external rate through which every bank will link the rate. ठीक है, थोड़ा टेक्निकल, अगर बहुत समझ में नहीं आया तब भी डाइजेस्ट इट कि इट हैपेंस थ्रू दिस रूट. बट ऐसा भी नहीं कि नहीं समझ में आएगा, आप समझ सकते हो. आवाज आ रही है? क्या चाहते हो, वैक्यूम क्रिएट कर दें एकदम ही वैसा रहे क्या? ना, इतना डिस्टरबेंस हो रहा है क्या? हाँ, कोहली जी आ जाइए, देखते हैं कितने देर में आते हैं. मीट एट द रिसेप्शन. You already have understood this real and nominal. Right now we are taking this price as constant. Right now we are taking this price as constant to calculate the 17-18. Nominal GDP was 168 lakh crores, real approximately 130 lakh crores. This has come by multiplying the quantity of this year and price of this year. ठीक है, नहीं आया क्या? एक लोग बोल के आ जाओ. If we change the base year, will growth change? पूरा एग्जाम्पल ले लेना पड़ेगा. कॉन्सेंट्रेट का इधर देखो, this is 196, this is 110 to 108, and this is 240. कितना रहा जरा कैलकुलेट करके बताओ ये 196 to 280 चेंज हो गया सही? चेंज 11.2%, and this change 10.9. अब इधर बोर्ड पे देखो and answer the question. This change is because of the change in quantity or price or both? I have taken the price constant na, so this change is because of the change in quantity. So to measure the change in quantity, to measure the real growth, we have taken prices constant. If I take any other price, for example 15 and 20 everywhere, 15 and 20 every year, will this change? How many of you think it will change? Okay. And how many of you think it will not change? My question is, price of wheat and rice is different, but every year we have taken the same price. So that's why this change is giving the change in quantity. ठीक है, जिसको भी डाउट होगा इस पे वो यही पूछेगा, ठीक है? So this change is a change in quantity. I am asking that if I will keep it 15-20, 15-20, 15-20, will this change? No. How many of you think that it will not change? And how many of you think it will change? बाकी लोग सीसेट की कोचिंग ज्वाइन करो, उसमें भी मैं ही क्लास लूँगा. मैथ्स पढ़े हो नहीं पढ़े हो? ये प्राइस यहाँ पे रख के चेंज बताओ, कैलकुलेट करके बताओ. और कोई दूसरे के लिए डिपेंडेंट नहीं रहेगा, आप लोग करके देखो. यू कीप दिस प्राइस एवरीवेयर एंड टेल मी द चेंज. करो, हाँ तो लिखो, वहां से आएगा ना. इंजीनियरिंग की हो ना? नहीं, फिर माफ है गलती यार. कितना आया? हाँ हाँ, तो ये लो ना. अरे जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ इसको लेके चेक करो ना. कितना आ रहा? 4.2%. बताओ ना, मुझे नहीं, आई डोंट नो कि कितना आ रहा है. 10.89. हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू आर गेटिंग 10.8? बाकी लोग करो जल्दी से. जब तक आप खुद से कभी करोगे नहीं, मैं 10 बार बताऊंगा 10 बार आप भूलोगे। हाउ मच इट इज कमिंग? 10.8. This change is because of the change in quantity. If you change the price, this changes. How many of you are understanding this? कोई भी जो इकोनॉमिस्ट बना है बिना मैथ्स पढ़े नहीं बना आज तक, किसी को भी आप देख लो। वन kg almonds into ₹1000। इधर देखो आप 1 kg salt into ₹20। टू kg almonds into ₹1000, 1 kg salt into ₹20. This is one case. This is second case. In both the cases, here quantity of production is 2, here quantity of production is 3, here quantity of production is 3. In which case GDP growth will be higher or it will be same? In which case GDP growth will be higher or both will be same? How many of you think that in the first, I am asking that from here to here there will be some GDP growth, from here to here there will be some GDP growth. In which case GDP growth will be higher? First case, because the commodity who has higher value, that commodity is increasing more. So it matters on price also, कि what price you are taking constant. If this price will change more, even if you are taking constant, but the difference, this prices also impacts the growth, because that is value. Even if you are measuring real change, you are taking it price constant, but the difference in prices between different products, that also impacts. If India next is producing more quantity of the product which is higher in value, which has higher prices, the GDP growth will be more. समझ गए? Now this government is calculating GDP growth by taking this year price constant. In 2007-8, when UPA published the growth rate 9.6%, they were taking price constant of 2004-5. Now when BJP is comparing the growth of these 5 years, 14 to 19, with the UPA first 5 years, with the UPA first 5 years. So 2014 to 19 average growth and 2004 to 9 average growth. When we are calculating the growth, comparing the growth of UPA and BJP, don't you think that we should take the same year price as constant? Because right now they took 4-5 price constant, we took 11-12 price constant, so we will not get the best comparison. We should take, suppose we take 2000 year price constant, we take 2000 year price constant, and with that price constant we should calculate the growth in 4 to 9 and 14 to 19 rather than different base years. So to compare, now government has released the growth of UPA first 4 to 9 by taking 11, 12 price as constant. You can take any forward price here also as constant. So now we have taken 11, 12 price constant. We have calculated the growth in BJP years. We have calculated the growth in UPA years. And by taking 11, 12 price as constant, the growth in UPA is coming to less whatever was reported by taking 4, 5 price constant. Yes, doesn't matter because you are taking price constant.
Price constant, but quantity will also change, right? I mean, price agar.
हाँ, so if depression came, then we will blame that in UPA period depression came, the growth will be less. We are taking the price constant, na? So if in UPA depression came, prices reduced, doesn't matter, we took price constant, quantity reduced, so we will blame the UPA that in your phase depression came and the growth was less. कुछ भी हो, ये समझ गए बैक सीरीज डेटा? तो कोई डाउट? गुड. यही ज्यादा आ गया होता तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं होती, तो इशू नहीं रेज होता, हमें समझाना नहीं पड़ता, आप कभी समझते नहीं. बेसल नॉर्म्स क्या नहीं हुआ था? MCLR नहीं हुआ था, और मैंने ट्रांसमिशन बता दिया था. एक्चुअली पैरेलली सेम टॉपिक क्रैश कोर्स में कल मैंने फिनिश किया, तो इसलिए कुछ कंफ्यूजन सा हो गया. इसमें से कितने लोग शाम के क्रैश कोर्स में थे? अच्छा, वहां पे मैंने MCLR किया, राइट? याद करके रखे, छोड़ने नहीं दोगे आप. So base rate में we used to calculate the lending rate based on 4 factors, right? Cost of deposits, then reserve requirement, then operational costs and profit margin. But major important factor is cost of deposits. Major important factor is cost of deposits. And in case of base rate, we used to take the average cost of deposit. Yesterday we took that example, na? Example लिए थे नहीं? But we understood base rate and we understood this transmission mechanism. बैंक आज कितना डेट है? 13th. This is repo rate. ₹1 crore at 97. ₹1 crore got deposited in this bank on 12th Feb 2017 at 9%. FD, fixed deposit. Then another 1 crore got deposited at 8% because after that the interest rate reduced on 12th Feb 2018. Then 1 crore got deposited at 7%. So till yesterday, the bank's average cost of deposit 8%. Bank's average cost of deposit is 8%. And on 12th Feb the deposit rate was 7%. On 12th Feb the repo rate was 6.25%. ठीक है? Clear है? On today 13th Feb in the morning RBI reduced the repo rate to 6%. Banks reduced the deposit rate to 6.5%. Banks reduced the deposit rate 6.5%, but till now, since morning, no one has deposited any money at this rate. ठीक है? So RBI changed the repo rate, banks changed the deposit rate. ठीक? Banks changed the deposit rate by that transmission mechanism. What is the average cost of deposit right now? 8%. What is the average cost of deposits? How many of you think that 8%? आप लोग सीसेट को सीरियसली ले रहे हो ना? हाँ, कैसे करोगे? What is the average cost of deposit? No money has been deposited here. How much bank is paying interest rate on total deposits? How much bank is paying? 24 lakh. How much bank is paying interest in 1 year? 24 lakh. कितना interest दे रहा बैंक? 24 lakh is the interest payment. And total deposit? 3 crore. Average cost? 8%. बैंक का till the time no money has been deposited at this, अभी भी बैंक का cost क्या है? 24 lakhs on 3 crore of deposits. So still average cost is 8%. आज कितना भी रेट है doesn't matter. I didn't ask average rate of deposit. I asked average cost of deposit. Average. I didn't say कि आप इनका average calculate करो. I said कि average cost of deposit for the bank. What is the average cost? 8%. Average cost will change when something will be deposited at 6.5%. तब ना average change होगा? हाँ? Cost of deposit, समझ रहे हो? Cost of deposit, this is 9% cost of deposit है, 8%. So बैंक के लिए average cost of deposit is still 8%. Clear? So RBI reduced the repo rate, banks reduced the deposit rate, but did their cost on previous deposits, but did their cost, average cost, बैंक ने rate reduce कर दिया, बैंक का cost reduce हुआ? No, it is still paying 8% average. Should it reduce lending rate? Today repo rate got reduced, bank today reduced the deposit rate, but did it cost change? No. When it cost will change? When something will be deposited here, its cost will change. So even if RBI used to change the repo rate, banks used to change the deposit rate, but they were not willing to change the lending rate. Because banks cost didn't reduce even if deposit rate got reduced until unless something comes here. Banks used to reduce the deposit lending rate after 2, 3, 4, 5 months when there was some deposit at this rate and some previous deposits are gone, then their average cost used to reduce and then they used to reduce the lending rate. This used to happen in base rate. ठीक है? Now RBI is saying to bank, has said to banks that don't link your lending rate with average cost of deposit, rather link the lending rate with the new cost of deposit, marginal cost of deposit. Marginal cost of deposit means if the new deposits will come, what is the new rate? 6.5%. So if banks will, उसमें banks का थोड़ा loss हो सकता है, but now if repo rate will change, deposit rate will change, and since banks lending rate is linked with the marginal rate, cost of deposit. So their lending rate will also change. This is MCLR. So difference, बहुत slides का difference है. Base rate and MCLR are almost same. In base rate, the bank's lending rate was dependent on average cost of deposit. In MCLR, bank's lending rate is dependent on marginal, the new cost of deposit. Banks का थोड़ा loss हुआ इससे, but try to understand. In the long run, the repo rate will keep on moving up and down. It will get adjusted when these deposits will go away. So MCLR, RBI moved from base rate to MCLR for what purpose? For what purpose? For faster transmission of repo rate into lending rate. Now try to understand. Suppose, but are banks legally bound to reduce the lending rate when the RBI is changing the repo rate? No. But generally it will happen. In which case it will not happen? Suppose RBI reduce the repo rate, bank's deposit rate will reduce. Bank's deposit rate will reduce. MCLR is directly proportional to certain factors. Marginal cost of deposit, reserve requirement, operational cost. Suppose RBI reduce the repo rate, banks reduce the deposit rate, this marginal cost of deposit will reduce, but suppose parallelly bank's other costs increased, then bank may not change the MCLR rate. So they are not legally bound, but generally it will happen. So RBI was saying that even after moving to MCLR, some banks are not passing this. So now RBI is planning that from 1st April, every bank has to link the lending rate not with their own MCLR, but with any external rate. For example, every bank has the same MCLR or it may be different. It's different depending on the cost. It is different. So when RBI changes the repo rate, they again calculate all their costs. And then they say, now our MCLR is this. So most of the time it changes, but it may not change also. RBI reduce the repo rate by 0.25%. It may be possible that they reduce the MCLR by 0.2%. It may be possible because there are other costs also involved. Now RBI is saying कि you fix your lending rate. जैसे आज के डेट में a bank says कि my MCLR is 9%, housing rate MCLR plus 2, education loan MCLR plus 3, project loan MCLR plus 4, personal loan MCLR plus, ऐसे linked है through MCLR. MCLR is the minimum rate below which banks cannot lend, and depending on different projects, different kind of loans, they have fixed this MCLR plus this, MCLR plus that. When RBI changes the repo rate, generally their MCLR changes, but it's not fixed to change होगा ही. Now RBI is saying कि don't link the lending rate with MCLR in future. They are saying कि you announce your rate by an external benchmark rate. External benchmark rate means you announce your lending rate with repo rate. With repo rate. So suppose every bank says that कि now from 1st April onwards कि housing loan repo rate plus 3%, education loan repo plus this. So the moment RBI changes the repo, automatically all the banks every loan will change. They don't need to do anything else. Of course, they will have the freedom to decide कि what will be their rate. That means whether it will be repo rate plus 2.5 or repo rate plus 3. That the banks will have freedom. But whatever it will be, the moment RBI changes the repo rate, automatically it will be transmitted everywhere. So MCLR rate, minimum lending rate, that banks calculate on their own depending on their own cost factors. That is called their internal benchmark. MCLR is there. Every bank has their own internal benchmark. If they will link the with repo rate, that repo rate is external benchmark. So RBI is planning that from 1st April 2019 onwards, they will ask banks to link their lending rate with an external benchmark rate. That can be repo rate, that can be a CPI inflation, that can be any other external rate.
So, is it mandatory for banks to lower their lending rate and repo rate?
No, it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory, but generally, if they are mandatorily bound to link the lending rate, minimum lending rate, with the four factors. With the how should they calculate MCLR? That RBI has given guideline. But try to understand, if this rate reduces banks, but there are other things changes, they may not pass it on. So they are not legally bound as such, but generally it happens. Generally it happens, and it is also possible that repo rate is changed by 0.25%, but MCLR changes by just 0.2%. Why? Kuch others increased. But if they will link with repo rate, repo plus something, the time repo rate change, automatically they don't need to do anything. Automatically it will be changed. But they may be given freedom to revise this linking, maybe after every 1 month or every 3 months. As SBI said ki home loan repo plus 3%. The time RBI will change, repo it will change. Is this going to be permanent? RBI may say that ki you can you fix it, but you can change it or revise it after every 1 month or quarter. That will be their freedom. They will not have the freedom कि RBI रेपो रेट इंक्रीज कर रहा है, ठीक है, RBI रेपो रेट रिड्यूस कर रहा है, तो ये तो रिड्यूस हो जाएगा, बट दिस दे विल इंक्रीज. दे विल नॉट हैव दिस फ्रीडम एवरी मोमेंट, अदरवाइज तो पर्पस डिफीट हो जाएगा ना. But they may be given freedom कि after every 3 months, 6 months you can change these things. This linking how much? They will should have freedom, right? Now the interest rates have been deregulated by RBI. They are free to decide the lending rate and deposit. They are free to decide. Then change from MCLR to an external benchmark. It can be anything. I am not saying just repo rate. Most probably it is going to be from 1st April 2019 onwards. अभी हुआ नहीं है. For more better transmission, more transparency also. Transmission and transparency both. Transmission of repo rate into lending rate. ठीक है, कोई डाउट नहीं? वो जो लोन लिया वो तो एडजस्ट कर लिया जाएगा ना कि कैसे करना है. लियो क्या आप? वो शिफ्टिंग में क्या करते हैं वो एक ऑपरेशनल इशू है, उसकी चिंता आपको नहीं करनी है. स्लोली एंड स्टेडली दे विल शिफ्ट. जैसे व्हेन वी मूव फ्रॉम बेस रेट टू MCLR, देन RBI गिव गाइडलाइंस कि जो पहले के लोन थे उसको कैसे शिफ्ट करना, उसमें आपको नहीं पढ़ने की जरूरत है. हाँ, मंथली पब्लिश होता है तो मंथली ट्रांसमिशन होगा, बट दिस फ्रीडम CPI plus 2 और CPI plus 3, that the banks will be getting the freedom. Right now banks have been said you can change your MCLR even after every month. After every month, so they must be given freedom. ऐसा थोड़ी कि एक बार हमने फिक्स कर दिया तो जिंदगी भर के लिए we have to keep this thing. समझ गया? कोई डाउट है तो पूछ लो, डरने की जरूरत नहीं है. ठीक है, हाँ क्या पूछ रहे थे आप? इन्फ्लेशन का क्या कुछ पूछ रहे थे ना अपने चिट से निकाल के कुछ? थोड़ा बहुत कुछ ये टेक्निकल है, उसको थोड़ा अभी कोशिश को थोड़ा डाइजेस्ट करने की. इट मे बी पॉसिबल कि यू अंडरस्टैंड 70-80%, बट देयर आर सर्टेन टेक्निकल थिंग्स थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट होता है, एंड इट इज देयर, सो वी आर बाउंड टू टीच. कोई जरूरी नहीं कि आप ये 100% समझ जाओ, मे बी 90% भी तो ठीक है. सो हाउ मेनी ऑफ यू थिंक दैट दे हैव अंडरस्टूड दिस? अरे इसके पहले जो समझा है कोई नहीं समझा? समझ गया, चलो. और इस पे ऐसा नहीं कि देखो यहां से भी ट्रांसमिशन 100% नहीं होता है, समझ रहे हो ना? ये भी ट्रांसमिशन 100% नहीं पॉसिबल. इवन इफ इट इज 80-90%, 90% तो काफी इकोनॉमिक्स में ट्रांसमिशन कुछ टॉपिक्स के लिए, बाकी टॉपिक्स 100% हो. जोक बोलते हो लेकिन समझने के लिए तैयार नहीं हो. हाँ, बेसल नॉर्म्स अरे जो टीचर कुछ पढ़ा रहा है, इट कैन नेवर बी 100% ट्रांसमिटेड ना, वी कैन ट्राई फॉर इट ट्रांसपेरेंसी एंड ट्रांसमिशन, बट Basel norms. You know that ki most of the public deposits their savings in bank, and they consider, right? MCLR in base rate, one of the parameters which was average cost of deposit. Now in MCLR, that parameter is marginal cost of deposit. Right, but lending rate, the problem was with the lending rate, na? In base rate, समझे नहीं आप? In base rate, lending rate was linked with average cost of deposit. In MCLR rate, the lending rate is linked with the additional cost of deposit. यही तो हमने एग्जाम्पल लिया अभी. So you didn't understand that. समझ गए? आप ही से पूछ रहे हैं. ठीक है, आप एक बार फिर से बुक में है देखना, और डाउट होगा तो यू कैन अगेन आस्क. ठीक है. Basel norm. So public deposit their money with banks and then the banks lend to several sectors. So banks are very important for any economy because most of the savings comes to banks and then banks lends to several sectors. So public savings and the economic growth investment is linked to these banks. So banks are very important for any sector. And in this integrated economy, globalized economy, when one country is being interlinked with other economies through exports, imports, financial flows, then if the bank in one country defaults or goes bankrupt, it may impact the banks in other countries. Now it may be possible that in India the banks have taken loan from some other bank, the people here they have taken loan from some other bank. So if that bank will default, or if these people will default, the other countries or other banks will get impacted. So it was not only necessary to protect one country's banks, it was necessary to protect other countries' banks, because if they will default, our economic growth will also get impacted. We have borrowed ECB from different countries, foreign loan. If those banks will default, we won't be able to borrow. So it will impact our economy also. So 27 countries' central bankers met at a place in Switzerland, Basel, and they planned that let's devise certain norms. Let's devise certain norms for our banking sector, which every central bank will try to implement in their banking sector. So they have devised certain norms. They have devised certain norms. Those norms for the banking sector, so that the banks don't fall into bankruptcy, their functioning is properly well organized. So they have devised certain norms to protect the depositors' interest, and those norms are called Basel norms. Now there is one very important norm in Basel norm which is being used since last 3-4 years and which is being reported in the newspaper also. So that norm everyone must understand. ठीक है? And that norm is capital adequacy ratio. You don't need to understand each and everything in Basel norm, but capital adequacy ratio is an important norm that you should understand. हाँ. हम रोबोट नहीं हैं कि डिट्टो जो एक एक वर्ड लिखा हो वैसे ही फॉलो हो. चैप्टर वाइज विल कीप ऑन फॉलोइंग. एक सब टॉपिक इधर से उधर हुआ तो हैव पेशेंस. कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो फुल कॉन्सेंट्रेट हो के यहाँ पे देखो, लिखने की जरूरत नहीं, हमने लिख के दिया आपको. सो दैट आपको ऐसा लगता है क्या कि हम हमेशा ही बोलते हैं कि कॉन्सेंट्रेट करके देखोगे कि ऐसे टॉपिक्स चल रहे करें क्या हम? डेट इक्विटी यू हैव अंडरस्टूड? There are two companies. Suppose in one company the owners put funds. So the company got cash 1 crore and the company is liable to pay that. So here it will write owner's money. This is for the share document that the company has given. That share document is liability for the company. So it's right, owner has given 1 crore. Now this cash the company converted into building. ठीक है? Right? Now this company took loan of 3 crore. Loan of 3 crore. So loan 3 crore, and with that 3 crore loan, it purchased equipment. In which case the banker's money is more safe? See what happens, you know that when a company goes bankrupt, this company has purchased these assets from the money of two class of investors, as a creditor, as a owner, shareholders. Two class of investors have put money into the bank. With that money, the company purchased assets and the company has a liability. Company issued a document. So the company acquired these assets. Whenever someone acquires assets, liabilities are also acquired. So this is the liability, this is the asset. On this asset, who has the claim? Both class of investors. ये किससे बना है? Both class of investors have given money and the company has acquired the assets. On this asset, both class of investors have a claim. First is of creditors and second is of owners, shareholders. ठीक. Now when I ask in which case the money is more safe, in which case the banker's money is more safe, safety comes into point when there is a case of bankruptcy. If the company is not bankrupt, the company is paying, doesn't matter. So when I am saying in which case the banker's money is more safe, that means in case of bankruptcy, in which case the bankers will be able to get their entire fund or more money back. ठीक. Or ABC, XYZ or both same. So when the company goes bankrupt, assets are sold in the market, whatever is the recovery first they get and then they get. In this case, if the assets are sold in the market when the company goes bankrupt, and suppose there is 75% recovery, 4 crore assets sold in the market, 75% recovery हुआ, they will get the entire money back. 4 crore का 75% 3 crore. ठीक है? In this case, if the company goes bankrupt and the assets are sold, if in this case the recovery is 75%, if in this case recovery is 75%, so how much creditors will get? 4.5 crore, 6 crore ka 75%, 4.5 crore. So creditors will lose money. In which case the creditors money is more safe? ABC. So wherever the proportion of shareholders money is relatively more, the creditors money is more safe. ठीक है? यहाँ पे in ratio, this is owner money upon creditor money is more than as compared to this. ठीक है? So this is more safe. Simple सा फंडा है कि both have the claim on these assets. They have the first claim. So if they have less money as compared to them relatively, so they will be more safe. यहाँ पे ये रेशियो 1:3 है, यहाँ पे 1:5 है. So here they are more safe. Clear है? जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ SR प्राइवेट लिमिटेड में Subranjan has invested 1 crore as an owner, and if SR Private Limited goes into the market to raise loan, owners have invested 1 crore. So SR Private Limited goes into the market to raise loan. What do you think that how much money SR Private Limited will be able to raise? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. It depends sometimes in the company's profile also, but generally maybe 0.5 crore, 1 crore से ज़्यादा बैंक देगा नहीं. Banks always give by looking at how much owners have put into the money, क्योंकि उस पर उनकी safety depend करती है. If owners have put 1 crore, bank won't mind ever giving 10 lakh. Bank won't mind giving 10 lakh, but bank will not be willing to give 2 or 3 crore because they know that if something happens, they may not be able to recover that money back. So creditors give their money loan always by first seeing how much is the equity, how much is the owner's money. Proportion matter करता है. Generally in companies में 2:1 से फिर वो ज़्यादा देना नहीं प्रेफर करते. But it also depends. अगर बहुत अच्छी कंपनी क्रेडिट प्रोफाइल जैसे क्रेडिट वर्दी कंपनी तो they may give a little bit more. बेकार कंपनी they may get a little bit. So as such there is not, this ratio is not regulated कि how much money owners have given and how much money creditors will give. ठीक है. Now let's take these two as banks. Axis, ICICI. So Axis ICI में this is the bank owner's money, and in bank you deposit money. So with that deposit, this is the bank got cash. The bank got cash, and now bank is liable. What should I write here? Deposit of public. Same thing here. Now this cash the bank lends. Loan दे दिया. This is loan paper. In which case depositors' money is more safe or same? In which case depositors' money is more safe? Access. Same concept. ठीक है. They are creditors. Depositors are creditors to the bank. So if something happens, they will be able to recover more as compared to this. So what we calculate is here capital upon asset. Capital may we consider owner's capital. How much money owners have given? 1 crore. And total assets 4 crore. If this ratio increases, depositor safety will if this ratio increases, depositors safety will. How many of you think increase and how many of you think decrease? फर्स्ट बेंच पे बैठ के कर क्या रहे हो आप लोग? If this ratio increases, how it will increase? If owners will put more money. If this ratio increases, depositor safety will increase करेगा ना? ठीक है? समझ रहे हो नहीं समझ रहे हो? If this ratio increases, how this ratio will increase? If owners will give more money, so this numerator will increases. So overall ratio increases. ठीक है? समझ रहे हो? देखो, if you know from this, don't see this ratio, you know from this कि if owners will put more money, depositor safety will increase, and if owners will put more money, this ratio also increases. So the depositor safety can be determined by seeing this ratio. If this ratio is more, depositor safety is more. ठीक है? Here it was 5, here the ratio is 1/6. Which ratio is more? This one. So that is why here the depositor safety was more, which you can very well see without calculating this ratio also. ठीक है? Now suppose this is 3 in which case the depositor's money is more safe? डिपेंड नहीं करता है क्योंकि दिस हैज गॉन बैंकरप्ट। न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ रहे हो ना? हाँ, पिछले 2 महीने से चल रहा है। दिस हैज गॉन बैंकरप्ट। द बैंक हैज गिवन लोन एंड द कंपनी हैज गॉन बैंकरप्ट, तो कंपनी मे नॉट बी एबल टू पे लोन। ठीक है, कुछ बताओ क्या पूछ रहे हो? एसआर स्टील, हाँ एसआर स्टील है ना, रुयाज ने डिफॉल्ट किया है। अब ये सब चीज को इतना बड़ा डिफॉल्ट है ना, इतना बड़ा, दिस लोन वाज अराउंड 55,000 करोड़ एंड मेजर इशू इज गोइंग इन सिंस लास्ट 2-3 ईयर्स में। आईबीसी कोड में मैं बताऊंगा कि क्या हुआ है बेसिकली, बट अब ये एसआर का इशू चल रहा है सच। अब जैसे प्रियंका गांधी ने पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन कर ली, आपके लिए रेलिवेंट नहीं है लेकिन पता तो होना चाहिए। आई अंडरस्टैंड कि रेलिवेंट नहीं है, बट कोई अगर जोक आ रहा कि उन्होंने पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन किया, तो अब आप लोग यूपीएससी एस्पिरेंट्स हो, यू शुड बी अवेयर कि क्या हो रहा देश में। ठीक है ना? तो एसआर का केस बहुत दिन से चल रहा है। मेजर लोन हैज गॉन डिफॉल्ट। ठीक है, और डेली ऑलमोस्ट न्यूज़पेपर में आ रहा है, और हिंदू में भी मुझे लगता आया होगा कई बार। देखो इनको और ज्यादा पता है। ठीक है, सो इफ दिस, सो इन दिस केस व्हिच वेयर द डिपॉजिटर्स मनी इज मोर सेफ, एक्सेस। ठीक है, बट इफ यू कैलकुलेट द रेशियो, बोथ आर सेम, both are same. So in the case of assets denominator both are same, does the quality of asset matters in the depositor's safety? Yes, it is not about only the value, quality of this asset also matters. ठीक है, but that ratio, this ratio till now has not captured quality of assets, so here we multiply risk weights. The asset having higher risk will have higher risk weight. RBI publishes this risk factor, don't need to go into all this. So try to understand, when this ratio was higher, depositor safety was higher. I asked you when deposit, तो full concentrate करके सुनो, ठीक है? वो चिड़िया की आंख वाला फोकस होना चाहिए ना। When deposit, I said कि when this ratio increases, depositor safety increases. If the risk of the asset is more, this ratio will decrease and depositor safety decreases. Right? So should we multiply risk factor in the asset or not? Yes, we should multiply it. समझ रहे हो आपने? Now suppose risk factor of this asset is 1, this asset is 1, risk factor of this is 2 and this is 1.5. इसका रिस्क ज्यादा है? ठीक है. Now you calculate capital 1 upon this asset का risk factor suppose 1, how building है, 1 into 1 plus 3 into 1.5. This is risk factor, from where it came doesn't matter. This is risk factor 1.5. Now here it is upon 1 into 1 plus 3 into 2. This is risk factor, higher risk. This loan is of higher risk. Now which ratio is higher? This one. And that is why the safety in the depositors here is more. So only the asset value doesn't matter, quality of asset also matters. So we should also took into account the quality aspect in this ratio. And this is called your capital adequacy ratio or capital to risk weighted asset ratio. Capital to risk weighted asset ratio. Capital upon risk weighted asset ratio. Capital adequacy ratio.
सर, earlier जब हम कर रहे थे तो उसमें भी तो 1/(1)
पहले 1/1+3 आ रहा था, यहाँ भी 1/1+3 आ रहा था, दोनों में सेम आ रहा था, ठीक है। बट आप बोले कि हियर योर मनी इज मोर सेफ, तो वी आर नॉट कैप्चरिंग द क्वालिटी. नाउ आई हैव कैप्चर्ड द क्वालिटी ऑफ एसेट, रिस्क फैक्टर. Should we multiply risk factor or not? Of course multiply, because इसका लोन दे दिया, लोन 3 crore का है, but whether the loan is going to turn into NPA or it's a better quality of loan, that matters. That matters in case of recovery. ठीक है. So if the loan paper is turning NPA, capital adequacy ratio of the bank will decrease, and if the capital adequacy ratio decreases, depositor safety also decreases, and that you can see here. So most of the loans which turned NPA is of public sector banks. So public sector banks capital adequacy ratio decreased, depositor safety reduced. So to increase the capital adequacy ratio of public sector banks, what can be done? In this case, if capital adequacy ratio has to be increased, the owners should put more money. If owners will put more, the capital adequacy ratio will increase and depositor safety will increase. ठीक है? नहीं समझ रहे हो? रिस्क वेट का इसमें क्या मतलब है? यहाँ पे if the owner will put 10 crore more, 3 crore depositors money, 14 crore, 10 plus 1 plus 14 crore का assets हो जाएगा, quite safe. देखो वो हो चुका है एनपी, अब आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. आपने लोन दे दिया पिछले 5-6 साल में. नाउ इफ यू वांट टू इंक्रीज द कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो, व्हाट आर द ऑप्शंस अवेलेबल? वो तो लोन आपने दे दिया, व्हाट कैन यू डू अबाउट दैट? रिस्क वेट का मतलब है इट इज जस्ट यूज्ड टू कैलकुलेट द कैपिटल एडिक्वेसी रेशियो ऑफ एनी बैंक. व्हाटएवर इज द रिस्क, व्हाटएवर इज द रिस्क, you multiply that risk factor. Now what I am saying is कि public sector banks loans have turned more NPAs. Now the risk factor is high. So now at this point of time, if we want to increase the capital adequacy ratio of the banks, they have already given loans, so the government will have to put more money, owner will have to put more money. So government of India is putting more money, capital, into public sector banks. In 1960s, 70s, 80s, government of India put capital and created public sector banks. Now it is again putting capital, recapitalization of public sector banks. Recapitalization of public sector banks to make the depositors more safe, and if government does recapitalization, extra money comes to the bank, which also helps them in further lending. So recapitalization, the purpose is to increase the depositor safety, to increase the capital adequacy ratio, and one other purpose is also to increase the credit in the economy, because this has turned NPA, the banks are not getting it back. Now they are not able to give loan, a lot of sectors are getting impacted, so government is putting money in this bank, owners money plus 2 crore plus 2 crore cash will come, this cash they can again lend. हाँ, कम होगा, कम होगा, डिपेंडिंग ना कितना इसने लगाया, कितना इसने लगाया. रिस्क फैक्टर तो क्वालिटी ऑफ एसेट पर डिपेंड करता है. ये रिस्क फैक्टर नहीं चेंज होगा अगर आप बिल्डिंग खरीद रहे हो तो उस कैश. हाँ, ये रिस्क फैक्टर इज फॉर एवरी एसेट. गवर्नमेंट गेव 10 crore एक्स्ट्रा, कैश केम 10 crore. This cash say the company purchased building. Now building ka I have taken already risk factor 1. Risk factor depends on quality of asset. तो हमने बिल्डिंग का रिस्क फैक्टर 1 ले लिया assumption. RBI क्वालिटी ऑफ एसेट से not compulsory. Banks have, central banks have decided to implement it. 27 countries का group है. They have decided. हर country पे नहीं है, नहीं.
For that 27 country it is compulsory?
No, not compulsory. We have voluntarily said that we will apply. Some countries have even changed the Basel norms to implement in their own country. I will tell you कि क्या change किया है. If our companies have taken loan from that bank, we are taking loan from other companies. Right? If we are taking loan from US and US bank is going bankrupt, we won't be able to take loan. अरे आप वो नहीं समझ रहे हो. We are borrowing from abroad or not? Yes. If the foreign banks will go bankrupt, from where we will borrow further? From where we will borrow? If those banks will go bankrupt, their economy will experience maybe recession, they will purchase less goods from India, our economy will also get impact. वो डिफॉल्ट का ही वही लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट का केस नहीं है. आई विल टेल यू क्या होता है लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट एंड ऑल दिस, बट ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड एवरी इकोनॉमी इज नाउ इंटरलिंक्ड इन अ ग्लोबलाइज्ड इकोनॉमी थ्रू बैंक्स, थ्रू अदर कंपनीज. हम लोग बाहर से बोरो करते हैं ना फॉर आवर इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ एंड लोन. क्यों बोरो करते हैं आप आगे समझोगे. बट इफ दोज बैंक्स हैव गॉन बैंकरप्ट तो इमेज नहीं भाई, आप अपने भाई आपका अगर बैंकिंग सेक्टर ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है, ठीक है, बैंकिंग सेक्टर ज्यादा स्ट्रांग है, इट इज गुड फॉर इकोनॉमी. द अदर फॉरेन एनआरआईज विल आल्सो बी विलिंग टू पुट मनी इन योर बैंक. समझ गए? तो कैपिटल में ओनर्स मनी आता है. राइट नाउ हाँ see, try to understand. They got money, they purchased assets. They gave loan, they got loan paper, that is the asset for the bank. They have given loan. Whatever loan they are giving in future, they should try to do proper due diligence. They should try to give to those credit worthy companies. Then the risk factor will be less, deposit safety will be more. But what all this problem is about, these banks have already given loan. These banks have already given loan. We know the risk factor. Now we can't do much about all those previous loans. Capital, yes, recapitalization is more of mitigation. That is true. For new loans, of course, we can try, and we are trying that we should not give to Vijay Mallya and these sorts of people. But whatever is the past loan, we can't change that quality of the past loan, na?
So, when a bank gives loan to someone, the bank wants some assets from that person.
कोई जरूरी नहीं है. पर्सनल लोन लेते नहीं लेते हो. When the bank is giving loan to companies, 10,000 crore का project है. When the bank gives loan to the company, can company keep guarantee of 10,000 crore? Impossible. So when bank gives loan to the companies, they are basically in a way backed by the assets of the companies. No other guarantee may be involved. ये सब आप समझ जाओगे IBC code में I will be discussing. ठीक है. अभी बस आप recapitalization focus करो. Now there is another way to increase the capital adequacy. So one we saw that owners is putting more money. Other way to increase the capital adequacy ratio is, इधर concentrate करो. Right now forget about this risk weight, just take a simple example. Right now the capital adequacy ratio is 1/4. Now another way to increase the capital adequacy ratio is, suppose banks issued bonds. Banks issued bonds. मतलब you purchase the bonds of a bank. You can purchase bond of Erudition IS Private Limited also. You can purchase the bond of this bank also. ठीक है. You purchase the bond of this bank, that means bank issued bonds. worth rupees 2 crore, you gave rupees 2 crore. Cash 2 crore. Here what should I write? Bonds. You purchased bonds, na? Bank issued bonds, that is asset for you, liability for the bank. Don't calculate this ratio, you just tell me by looking here. After issuance of bonds, depositor safety increased or decreased? देख लो यहाँ पे. After, don't calculate this ratio, you will not get anything from this. After issuance of bonds, qualitatively you have to analyze. After issuance of bonds, depositor safety increased or decreased? How many think increased? And how many of you think decreased? बाकी लोग लंच करके रेस्ट कर रहे हैं. If this bank goes bankrupt, now there are three classes of investors: owners, depositors, bondholders. They are categorized as creditor one class, but even in this creditors, there are two subclasses. So there are three kinds of people who have put money. If the bank goes bankrupt, who will get the first priority? नहीं, ये तो पूरे creditors हैं. Who will get the money first? Depositors. Why depositors? Because when you put 100 rupees as FD, you are putting your money in safe form, you will be getting interest. 100 rupees doesn't change. But when you are purchasing 100 rupees bond, you know that that price will fluctuate. So you know that you have taken a risk. Depositors have not taken risk, they have put money into safe form, their receipt remains same. So they get the first priority. Now knowing the fact that if this bank goes bankrupt, they will get the first priority. So what do you think after issuance of bonds, depositor safety increased or decreased? Earlier, for 3 crore of depositors money, what was the assets? 4 crore. Now, if the bank goes bankrupt, all this asset is available for the depositors. Now, if the bank goes bankrupt, their 3 crore is protected by this. Since they have the first claim, ध्यान से सुनना, since they have the first claim, whoever is going to put money into the company, other than depositors, they are going to increase the safety of the depositors. Whoever is going to put the money into this bank, other than depositors, they are going to increase the safety of the depositors because they have the first claim on the assets. So either they will put money, they are going to increase the safety of the depositors. So bondholders and shareholders both increases the safety of the depositors. That is why in this capital, both money are counted. If bondholders are putting money, depositor safety is increasing, this ratio should also increase. So in this capital, all those investors who are increasing this depositor safety, their money is included there. So capital mein we have two types of money: equity, owner's money, plus bond holders money. This is called tier 1, this is called tier 2.
Sir, if tier 2 goes higher than tier 1,
If
tier 2 goes higher than tier 1,
doesn't matter.
bonds अगर ज़्यादा हो गए, cash will कम होगा.
नहीं, दो स्टेटमेंट आपने बोल दिया. You said कि tier 2 ज्यादा है तो doesn't matter. Depositor safety is increasing as such. But depositor safety is increasing. So tier 1 capital, tier 2 capital बोलते हैं. ठीक है. Your Basel norm says that capital adequacy ratio should be 11.5%. ठीक है. So every bank has to reach 11.5% by 31st March 2019. That is Basel norm. 11.5%. This is basically 9% plus 2.5%. Earlier it was 9%. Now we have said that extra capital. This is the same, but extra 2.5 buffer. So this we have to meet 11.5% by 31st March 2019. Now capital adequacy ratio of public sector banks had decreased. So government will have to put more money by 31st March 2019. Government didn't have the money, elections aa gaye, so government said to RBI that please postpone the deadline from 31st March 2019 to 31st March 2020. RBI was not willing, so there was a tussle. But somehow RBI has agreed that out of 11.5%, the banks should meet most of the by 19 and 0.625% they can postpone it for the next year. But rest 10.875% they should achieve by 31st March 2019. So this was also a major issue of tussle between government and RBI. ठीक है? Now the ratio after issuance of bonds is 1 plus 2 by 6. Now it is so 3 by 6, 1 by 2. 1 by 4 earlier, 1 by 2 now.
So this company can have more loans?
It can give more loan. It can give more. So recapitalization से more lending भी होता है and capital adequacy से also increases. हर एसेट का हाँ होना चाहिए, जैसे होना चाहिए तो आरबीआई हैज गिवन दैट, उसमें क्यों जा रहे हो आप, सबके अलग अलग क्वालिटी, हाँ होना चाहिए, ऑफ कोर्स होना चाहिए। आरबीआई फंक्शंस नहीं, आरबीआई फंक्शंस, एक मिनट, आरबीआई फंक्शन से पहले आप कुछ और पढ़ लो। इसको बेटर तरीके से समझने के लिए पहले you study Indian financial system. Indian बाय द वे कल इको की क्लास नहीं है, मीट एट रिसेप्शन।
Are they going for webinar?
One thing I know that I am not going, बाकी उनका पता नहीं है। All the finance related companies in India who deals in money, they are classified into two, banks and non-banks. So every finance related company you can classify into two, banks and non-banks. What is the difference? They accept demand deposits, they don't accept demand deposits. This is the difference. ठीक है? They accept demand deposits and they don't accept demand deposits. Banks are further classified into commercial banks and cooperative. What is the difference? They are for profit purpose and they are for in general benefit of the members of the cooperative and welfare of the society. For example, see, cooperatives are established under Cooperative Act. I said that if you want to do business, you can establish a private limited company, you can establish a partnership firm, you can establish a cooperative also. ठीक है, under Cooperative Societies Act, state government, state के अंडर आती हैं. ठीक. If you want to establish your cooperative which should function within a state, so State Cooperative Societies Act हर state का, and then you have a multi-state Cooperative Societies Act also if you want your cooperative to function into different states. तो as a cooperative भी register कर सकते हो. But there are limits, there are restrictions. So if you want to establish a cooperative, then the act may says that it may require 500 members, 200 members. Cooperative generally members contribute. So cooperatives are established for the benefit of the members of that cooperative who have formed the cooperative and for in general welfare of the society, right? And they are mainly for profit purpose. They are for the benefit of the members of the cooperative and in general welfare of the society, but while they are doing that, they may generate profit, but their main purpose is the benefit of the members and society. So they are established under different act, they are established under different act. Commercial, again scheduled and non-scheduled. Scheduled are included in RBI's second schedule, they are not included in second schedule. The other difference is scheduled banks have full operational flexibility. They don't have full operational flexibility. They don't have full operational flexibility. See, banks broadly can be divided into two ways also, universal bank and differentiated banks. Overall, all the banks you can divide into two categories, universal and differentiated. Universal banks means they don't have any restriction on operations or geographical area, and differentiated banks means if a bank has a restriction on geographical area or operations, then they will be called differentiated banks. So payment banks are universal or differentiated? Differentiated, and because they have restrictions on operations, they cannot lend. Payment banks पे operational restrictions हैं, so that is why they are under differentiated banks. There is a category called local area banks. They have been restricted to operate only in 2 to 5 districts, contiguous districts. So they are also differentiated banks. So if there is a restriction either in operations or in geographical area, they will be called differentiated banks. If as such there is no restriction, then we call it universal bank. So there is another classification also. Here we are classifying into scheduled and non-scheduled. So this is included in second schedule, this is not included in schedule. And non-scheduled banks में operational restrictions हैं. So that is why non-scheduled banks are basically differentiated banks, and they are basically universal banks. Now in scheduled banks there are 4 categories: public sector banks, public sector banks, private sector banks, foreign banks, and then regional rural bank or public sector banks where government's ownership is more than 51%, private sector banks where private sector ownership is more than 51%, foreign banks कल हमने subsidiaries बताया. Foreign banks means any foreign bank in other country other than India, when they open a subsidiary in India, then that since जैसे Citibank India, now Citibank India is owned by Citibank US, so the owners of Citibank India are foreign entities, so Citibank India is called a foreign bank. Now Citibank India is also a private bank, but we have a separate classification for it. So all foreign banks in India जो यहाँ पे हैं, they have been established as subsidiaries of a foreign banks. That is why, so the owners are foreigners, foreign entities. So we call them foreign banks. Regional rural banks, RRBs. In 1969, Indira Gandhi government established these banks for funding the rural economy, for funding the rural based industries, agriculture, because these banks were not focusing on those. So government created a dedicated banks, regional rural banks. So in every RRB, government of India has put 50% money, 15% that state government, wherever that bank is, and 35% sponsored bank. So every RRB has been funded 35% by any other generally public sector banks. So every RRB has 35% ownership of another bank also, generally or public sector banks, mainly for the rural economy, agriculture or rural based industry. Non-scheduled mein we have only one category, local area banks. Till now 4 local area banks were established and they were restricted to operate only 2 to 5 districts, basically private banks. To promote more banking, government first allowed these local area banks, but they are not very successful. एक तो बंद हो गया, there are 3 remaining. तो रॉयल बैंक ऑफ स्कॉटलैंड इंडिया में है, दैट इज अ फॉरेन बैंक. ठीक है. Public sector banks is not for any sector. In the post-independence era during the socialist regime, most of the banks government was establishing. Almost in every sector, government was owning the enterprises, so government was owning the banks also, but this was not meant only for rural economy. Since rural economy was huge and they were not establishing branches in rural areas, they were, even if this is public sector bank, they work on commercial line. So government established these banks for the specific needs of the agriculture sector. Payment banks, RBI has still now not classified, but mostly payment banks should come here. Payment banks ka classification I checked, they have not classified, but mostly they should come here because they have operational restrictions. They don't have full operational flexibility.
But their transaction limit is maximum for 1 lakh rupees.
हाँ, transaction limit नहीं, that is demand deposit maximum 1 lakh. RRB? Who said कि payment banks is working in rural areas? ऐसा कहीं नहीं लिखा. किस? Payment banks is for the poor people, in urban areas also there are a lot of poor people. It is not sector specific in rural areas. No, not at all. Not at all. Cooperative. हाँ, ये भी डायग्राम बाकी है कि हो गया? No need to go into further classification of this. Again, cooperative, urban and rural, then urban scheduled, non-scheduled, rural. ठीक, इसमें further जाने की जरूरत नहीं. Cooperatives, you try to understand, they have been established under cooperative societies. So people and farmers or rural people have formed their own cooperative. In certain cases, cooperatives bank भी हो सकता है. A fertilizer company can also be a cooperative. Amul भी work कर रहा है cooperative में. So it is not only about banks. Anyone can establish cooperative and can do any kind of business. Cooperative banks भी हैं. What is the difference between public sector banks and nationalized banks? कहीं पे ना, there is a further categorization nationalized banks. Nationalized banks and public sector banks, there is no difference in terms of ownership. The difference is in terms of process. Nationalized banks are also public sector banks. But nationalization means forceful acquisition by government of a private company. So nationalized banks, earlier they were private banks, government forcefully nationalized them in 1969 and then 80s. So now they have become public sector banks through the process of nationalization. But as of now, there is no difference between a nationalized bank and a public sector because ownership is more, the government is more than 51%. आगे बताएंगे आपको when we will be studying the Indian economic history post 1947. Development financial institutions, we have 5. NABARD, Mudra Bank. So non-banking financial institutions are divided into 4 categories: DFIs, non-banking financial companies, primary dealers, credit information companies. DFI, all these are owned by Government of India. What do you understand by refinance? Refinance means, just suppose I am giving funds to you, not only for you, but for further lending. So this is refinancing. There were certain very important sectors of the economy like agriculture, housing, small industries. They were being impacted by the credit. They were not able to raise enough credit because they were not lending that much. They didn't have that much of financial resources. So government created their own institutions for those important sectors of the economy, not for direct lending, but for refinance so that they can further lend to those sectors. So government created NABARD for agriculture and rural development. Now this is a refinance institution. So if you are a farmer, you can't take loan from here. They give loan to these banks for onward lending. For onward lending. So these financial institutions have been created: NABARD for agriculture and rural development, Exim Bank for export and import, National Housing Bank for housing sector. So if you want housing loan, you can't approach them. They give money to these banks for onward lending. This is just to make more credit available to the important sectors of the economy. ठीक है. Now you can always say that the government, and how, so bank gives funds to them from where? Budgetary resources. Government collects tax and gives funds to them. So government created maybe this in 1982. Government suppose created this bank with 200 rupees crore. Now it started giving loan to them. It also earns interest, nominal, but it also earns interest. So its fund is growing. If government thinks that the agriculture sector is getting impacted and they are not getting enough credit, so government can again after 10 years collect tax and give funds to them. So when first time government creates funds, government creates this development finances from the budgetary resources, and later on government can always put extra fund in these banks from the budgetary resources. National Housing Bank, small industries, this is for MSME sector. This is for MSME sector, housing sector, export, import, agriculture. All these are very important for the economy. And this is for startup. SR Private Limited startup है, पता है? This is for informal sector. This is for informal sector. Informal sector, government has not given any definition, standard definition. But which sectors are said as informal? All those business entities which are not registered as such, who are not paying tax as such, who are not paying provident fund to their employees, we call it them unorganized informal sector. So this bank is for the informal sector. For example, ठेले वाले या कोई छोटी मोटी शॉप्स, दुकान लगाने वाले, ब्यूटी पार्लर्स, these are informal sectors. So this gives loan to the informal sector, but a ठेला वाला cannot approach Mudra Bank. It's a refinance institution. It gives loan to maybe Kotak Mahindra, and then Kotak Mahindra forwards it to those informal sectors. No collateral is required, and we have given a lot of loan through Mudra Bank. Mudra Bank has given a lot of finance, refinance. Now Raghuram Rajan sometime back warned that in future these Mudra loans may turn into NPAs because no collateral is required. These people are not registered as such. कोई as such एक place of business बहुत बार नहीं होता. No collateral is required. So अभी तो NPAs हम लोग ये resolve कर रहे हैं पीछे का big companies का. He is warning that in future these small informal businesses, they may also turn into NPAs. Mudra loans are given into 3 categories: Shishu, Kishore and Tarun. Less than 50k, less than 5 lakh and 50k, and less than 10 lakh and 5 lakh. All these are refinance institutions. ठीक है? Now primary dealers, you know, these are just financial institutions, banks only, but they have been authorized by RBI to purchase government bonds in the primary market. कल बताए थे ना? These institutions are financial institutions only, but they have been allowed by RBI to purchase government bonds in the primary market. For example, जैसे Axis Bank है. Now Axis Bank is there. Now Axis Bank may always create another department or another subsidiary, and they can register it with RBI to purchase government bonds in the primary market. So that department or that subsidiary will be considered as a primary dealers. ठीक है? दे बता रहे हैं. Credit information companies, these are private companies. There are only 4 private companies till now. So what credit information company, what they do is they register with several banks. They register with several banks and NBFCs. They take information of the people who have taken loan, of the companies who have taken loan. They collect this information, and then this information they again provide it to the banks so that they can evaluate for the lending purpose. जैसे you borrowed from Axis Bank, you defaulted. Now Axis Bank will provide this information to the credit information company. Credit information company will maintain their database. When you will try to take loan from ICC Bank will try to fetch your information from the credit information company. So credit information company register with the financial institutions, banks, NBFCs. They collect the information of the borrowers, either companies or individual, and when a bank lends, they try to fetch the information again from the credit information companies. Till now there are 4, only private. Now RBI is thinking of creating its own credit information company so that government has the complete database. ठीक है? But अभी तक 4 private companies. Now NBFCs, non-banking financial companies, they don't accept, all of these don't accept demand deposits. NBFCs, basically whoever were the money lenders earlier, money lenders जो movies में देखते थे ना, जो earlier थे, who belong to informal sector, now they have registered their own companies and have become NBFCs. So they don't accept deposit, they give loan. From where? Deposit तो लेते नहीं, loan देते हैं. कहाँ से? From their own owners fund. Owners fund. I created an NBFC, I am the owner, I put my own funds, I am lending. So NBFCs owners have given funds and then they lend. These NBFCs, they also borrow from the banks and then they lend. Then they lend. So if you will borrow from Axis Bank directly, you may get at 10%, but NBFC is taking from Axis Bank and then lending, it may lend at 11%. But NBFCs do that. But here the loan processing is quite easier. So NBFCs may owners fund also lend. From here also they take and lend. From here also they take, so they also take loan from them and then they also lend. So they provide refinance through these institutions all and through these NBFCs also. कोई कुछ पूछा था, आंसर हो गया? They provide refinance to all. ठीक है? So they provide refinance through this also and through NBFCs also. NBFCs यहाँ से भी लेते हैं, वहाँ से भी लेते हैं. बता, समझ गए? तीन महीने से इशू चल रहा है ILFS. हाँ हाँ हाँ. Borrowing cost will be more for the farmer. नहीं, they don't work on profit principle. ना, they don't work on profit principle. They give it to them for onward lending. For their lending, they may just charge a little bit margin. They decide their own rate. They are not working on profit principle.
Even if they are not working on the profit principle,
हाँ.
they have to at least get something to.
Of course, they earn interest. So in certain cases, the interest rate is 8%. Certain cases 4%, 5%. They give it to them for onward lending. When they are doing onward lending, they charge their own little bit margin, maybe 0.25%, 0.5%. But even if they are lending at less rate, they are earning money, na? What is your doubt?
But it will be more costlier for the farmer. Like,
No, no, no. Suppose NABARD says that I have given 100 crore to SBI, please lend. So NABARD is giving at 8% and it asks SBI to lend at 8.5%. Why it will be more costly? When they lend their own funds, they charge profit margin. They charge profit margin. Now they are not working for profit as such. So that's why these loans are given at a lesser rate.
just to make the cash available to the targeted sectors.
See, these institutions were established to provide more funds for the important sectors of the economy, not directly, but through these banks. Otherwise, तो इनकी उतनी branches open करनी पड़ती. So when they are providing funds for the important sectors of the economy, what is the purpose of charging very high interest rate? And they are government institutions, so they provide at a nominal rate, lesser rate. And government of India from its budgetary resources could have already given directly to them. What was the purpose of creating this? They could have already given to them. The purpose was when government creates this, management becomes very easy. Mukesh Ambani may have 300, 400 companies, but he has created one company and under one he has created several companies. So now government need to manage only these 5 institutions and they manage how much funds has been lent. So operational management becomes easy. समझ रहे हो? और किसी ने कुछ पूछा था इसमें? एक आपने क्या पूछा था? हाँ, so अब एक स्टेटमेंट ध्यान से सुनो. I said that all the finance related companies are categorized here and all the companies categorized here are regulated by RBI. ठीक है? All are regulated by RBI. Now NBFC का example है IL&FS and there are thousands of companies. Shriram Motor Finance, Muthoot Finance, all are NBFCs. So NBFCs people have created for different sectors. So if I will create an NBFC, maybe I will be lending for education sector. So there are more than 3,000 of NBFCs. I said that all the financial institutions which we have drawn here, all are regulated by RBI. but there are certain financial institutions for which we have a separate regulatory body like IRDA, insurance, mutual funds के लिए we have SEBI. Now they are also money and finance related company, but since we already have a separate regulatory body, now RBI don't regulate those finance related companies. They are mutual funds or insurance, they are also NBFCs only. They are also NBFCs only, but now RBI don't regulate those finance related NBFCs where we have already created a separate regulatory body. समझ गए? Doesn't? It's a government NBFC. That will
Doesn't they come under the development finance?
in see development financial institutions early, now it is only 5. Earlier that was there, but now government converted into that. ठीक है, government converted into that. So the difference between these and these are mainly private companies. These are mainly private companies, and this government constituted for specific sectors. Earlier there were more, but now government is treating only these as the development financial institutions. ठीक है? So this government realized that there is a major other sector, informal sector, which is left behind. So government has created one another. हाँ? मैं बोला तो कि सब इसको देते हैं, सबको देते हैं, रिफाइनेंस करते हैं. नहीं, डिमांड डिपॉजिट. See, we have created several class of institutions. If they want to take, let them convert into bank. See, try to understand first thing. There are several needs of the economy. We can't convert every financial institution into NBFC. अब आप पूछ ही लियो तो समझ लो 2 मिनट. One day Subramanian ma'am wanted to open an education based company, commercial education. She opened this. Was any license required? No. License was not required. इंडिया में 1991 के पहले we had license राज. आज है license राज? हाँ? क्यों मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एनवायरमेंट एंड फॉरेस्ट का परमिशन नहीं चाहिए होता पावर प्लांट और कोल माइन के लिए? सो वी हैव लाइसेंस राज और नॉट? So, ये आप आगे समझ जाओगे. We don't require permission for setting any industry now. We don't require MOEF. It is not a permission. I will explain you in detail later on. As of now, we don't require license or permission to start a business except banks. Subramanian ma'am started this business. She didn't require any license. She put her money. She started this business. Business डूबेगा तो वो डूबेंगी. But if she opened a bank, took the depositors' money और डूब गए तो सारे depositors डूब गए. When you are opening a bank, you are taking the depositors' money who are keeping it as a safety point of view. If you go default, the depositors will lose. So still we have a requirement of license permission when you open a bank related company. ठीक है? Now giving RBI gives, there are very few licenses which RBI as such gives. It checks a lot of things. So suppose as of today you want to open a bank, RBI will not give you. You don't have that credentials. But if you want to open an NBFC, there are very few restrictions. Because NBFC में you are not taking depositors' money, you are putting your own money, you are raising money from somewhere else. So getting a license of NBFC is easy. Now suppose you got a license of NBFC, you started performing. After 10-15 years seeing your performance, RBI, if you will ask, RBI may convert your NBFC license into a bank license. It may be possible that I just want to continue as NBFC, so you may continue, but if you want to convert into bank, you may be converted. Now all NBFCs cannot be asked to take deposits as such, depends on credentials and whether they want it or not. It may be possible that I just want to operate as an NBFC only, I don't want to create this convert into bank, it may be possible. Who is going bankrupt? Government is not inducing funds, no. बता रहे हैं, समझ गए ये, ठीक है. So there are some NBFCs who are not regulated by, here all are regulated by RBI. There are some NBFCs where we have separate regulatory body, they are regulated by that. ILFS का crisis समझ लो just. And micro financial institutions are also NBFCs only, but they have a restriction that how much money they can lend. जैसे माइक्रो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस पे वी हैव अ लिमिट दैट दे कैन नॉट लेंड मोर देन 1 लाख टू वन इंडिविजुअल. सो ऑल माइक्रो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशंस आर एनबीएफसीज ओनली, जस्ट उनके लेंडिंग पे रिस्ट्रिक्शन है. ILFS का क्राइसिस 5 मिनट में आप समझ लो. ILFS was an NBFC and NBFC are allowed to trade in money market as allowed. I said कि NBFCs they do refinance. NBFCs owners have put their own money also, and they take banks money and lend or not? Yes. So NBFCs borrow from banks also and then they lend. So NBFCs, ILFS had borrowed a lot from banks and they have given, so ILFS had borrowed funds and then they have given lending here. And ILFS trades here also. ILFS trades here also. In this money market, some institutions are purchasing money, taking money, and some institutions are giving money. ठीक है? Through debt papers. So there are institutions who are borrowing money and there are institutions who are giving money. Now if ILFS defaults, ILFS Axis and ILFS. ILFS had taken 100 crore cash suppose and it has given a debt paper. IL and FS at 8% for 6 months or something. If ILFS defaults on this, so ILFS had taken money and it has given this debt paper. After 6 months, suppose ILFS didn't pay, so it's a default. It's a default. Now, if this default happens, there are a lot of banks and institutions here who are holding this ILFS debt paper. Why Axis Bank got this ILFS debt paper? It may have sold to some other institution. So there are a lot of ILFS debt papers floating in this system. There are a lot of other companies' debt papers floating in the system. These all are triggering events. If ILFS defaulted, then all those institutions who were holding ILFS debt papers, see, suppose 31st July को ILFS has to pay this. Suppose 31st July को ILFS has to, जैसे 6 months है ना, तो 6 months 11th August, 13th August को ILFS has to pay 100 crore. Now 13th August को suppose ILFS didn't pay, that means ILFS defaulted. There may be a lot of debt papers of ILFS here who has a future maturity date. फ्यूचर मैच्योरिटी डेट, समझ रहे हो? नाउ ऑल दोज इंस्टीट्यूशंस हु आर होल्डिंग ILFS डेट पेपर ऑफ एनी फ्यूचर मैच्योरिटी डेट, they will all start selling right now, not to ILFS, to someone else. They will start selling and they will start taking money. And when ILFS default, हर जगह ILFS is defaulting, then even if you are holding debt paper of Muthoot Finance, you will also feel that इसको भी सेल करके कैश ले लो, ठीक है ना? If you are holding some other debt paper, na, since these defaults trigger behavioral changes, if one default is, तुम आपको लगता है कोई और भी डिफॉल्ट कर सकता है, so you want to sell the debt paper and want your money back, ठीक है? शेयर्स नहीं होता, एक शेयर गिरने लगता है अदर कंपनी, so these are trigger event. So what happened here? All those institutions who were holding debt papers, either of ILFS or they started selling and they wanted cash. So in this market, after ILFS default, more institutions started selling the debt paper, they started buying money, cash. So after ILFS default, more people were buying cash, more paper, more institutions were buying cash, less institutions were willing to give cash. Earlier there were some institutions who were buying money, some institutions who were giving money. There was some interest rate in this. When more institutions started buying cash by selling the debt paper and less institutions are willing to give cash, the interest rate here increased. The interest rate here increased. When interest rate here increased, so now the money is available here at a higher rate. This impacts the interest rate in capital markets also. So we say कि interest rate hardening. Interest rate बढ़ गया, that means cost of money increased. It impacts credit in the economy. It impacts money supply in the economy. Then RBI pumped cash in this market. So everyone was buying money and less institutions were selling money. RBI started selling money. RBI started selling money means pumping money. So RBI started selling money and it bought debt papers and gave cash. Did RBI give cash specifically to ILFS? No. RBI just increased the liquidity in the economy. Here money is, RBI increased the overall liquidity in the economy. RBI didn't help NBFC. RBI didn't help ILFS specifically. This was also an issue of tussle. Government was saying that you pump more money. There was some, देखो, what is happening? 3 महीने में election है. Already MSME sector and certain other sectors were impacted by this demonetization GST. So credit flow impact हुआ था. Now government don't want this kind of situation anymore. So government don't want कि credit की कोई problem, loan की problem. So when there was problem here, government wanted RBI to intervene. RBI intervened, but government wanted that कि RBI should pump more money. But RBI said कि it is sufficient. So this was also an issue of tussle.
Indirectly तो ILFS को फायदा हुआ.
Indirectly, this market में liquidity की problem resolve हुई. Liquidity की problem resolve. Overall interest rate softened. Overall interest rate softened. ILFS की एक crisis थी. ठीक है, कल भी एक चीज ILFS के बारे में आप समझोगे नहीं, कल तो शायद क्लास ऑफ है. ठीक है, आपका भी टेस्ट है.